Am I audible? Yeah, okay.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion on the digital versus phygital reach Indian households for bill payments. We have a very esteemed panel with us on stage, starting with Mr. K. Vijayakumar, General Manager, DPSS CO, Reserve Bank of India, Mr. J. Venkatramu, MD and CEO, IPPB, Mr. Sanjay Kumar Rakesh, MD and CEO of CSC, Mr. Samir Nagpal, Chief Business Officer, Spice Money, Ms. Diksha Nagpal, Director, Google Pay, and Mr. Sunil Kamath, Head Cash Management, Corporate Cards and Corresponding Banking at Axis Bank. And moderating this session is Ms. Noopur Chaturvedi, Chief Executive Officer, NPCI Bharat BillPay. Let's have a round of applause for this esteemed panel on stage. And over to you, Ms. Chaturvedi, to take the panel discussion forward.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. At the outset, just want to say thank you to all my panel members who've taken the time out for this discussion today. India proudly hosts more than 1 billion telecom subscribers distributed in 800 million smartphones and 400 million plus feature phone users. No wonder, globally we are known as the land of opportunities. However, the story takes a turn with only 15% of this user base being a digital customer as far as payments are concerned. The number grows still thinner when we talk about digital bill payments. Imagine the scale at which digital payments are under-penetrated. Despite a double-digit surge in volume of digital transactions, the cash circulation has only grown up. Does this indicate that the customers prefer digital as well as cash transactions? Or perhaps creates an opportunity for all the physically assisted players? In this panel discussion, we would attempt to understand some of the consumer nuances behind this. To discuss with us, we have the panelists, and a quick round of introduction has already been done. But even then, I would like to highlight the diversity of the panel. So on one side, we have Mrs. Diksha, leading Google Pay payments in India, and the third largest consumer app as far as BBPS is concerned. And on the other, we have Mr. Sanjay from CSC and Mr. Venkatramu from India Post Payment Bank, primarily the physical channels that are available. Also with us are Sunil and Samir from Axis and Spice, respectively, the players that have an emulsion of both digital as well as physical plays. And I'm really grateful for Vijayakumar sir to also join this panel, who has been one of the biggest supporters of digital payments in India. Before I start, just wanted to do a quick fire. So for all my panel members, when we say digital, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Diksha, can I request you to begin?
Instant.
Thank you. Vijayakumar sir. Sir, can I request you to use the mic, please? Yes.
I would say instant and very convenient.
Convenient. Thank you very much. Sir.
No requirement for wallet, no paper money required.
No paper money.
It's more about the experience.
Experience, okay. Sunil.
Planning to say it's about the experience, right? Today the customer is not buying a product, it's buying an experience, right? And that really drives him towards the digitization.
So digital is experience.
Convenience.
Convenience, okay. Thank you very much for that. With that, my first question really to Sanjay sir. Out of the 1 billion plus people using phones, the fact remains that a number of them are still not digitally enabled and not digitally educated as far as payments are concerned. Against this backdrop, what is the role that the physical infrastructure plays to enable bill payments? More importantly, where Bharat is concerned, do you think a physical infrastructure is a must-have? And what role can you play in enabling that?
Okay. Two questions. I'll try to take one by one.
Yes.
The first question that you asked, the issue is I may be digital savvy, but to build a trust with my own hard-earned money to exchange through a medium I am not comfortable with takes some time. Until that time comes, the physical infrastructure available near the person's home that helps him in building that trust. So there are stages of gradual upgradation or movement that if first I get a mobile phone, then I get a smartphone, then I use the features, first I use some apps, then I move to a financial payment. So physical infrastructure available in the neighborhood helps in graduating a person to move towards a digital payment. To that extent, it supplements. Then it also complements it because it also provides more essential services. So before you do the digital payment, there is a need for KYC, there is a need for bank account, OTP, so mobile seeding. So physical infrastructure available on the neighborhood helps in completing the procedures that leads to digital payment. So in my view, the physical infrastructure, it's not phygital versus digital. It's widening the choice. Actually, if you get into that, the Amartya Sen's book said that a person's richness is decided by the basket of the choices that he has. The wider the choice, richer a person is. Similarly, a society is rich if its citizens have a larger choice. Now we have a physical method, we have phygital method, we have digital method. It's for the citizen to choose which he likes the best, and then he takes on. So it's both moves. So this is the first part. And second part, as you said, physical infrastructure is needed because in Bharat, there is a lot of issues that comes up. We all talk about the mobile phones, smartphones, and mobile-based internet. But there is a issue of reliability and speed of the mobile phones. And when I do the digital transactions, if internet goes off, there is a problem. Transaction gets stuck, my money refund takes time. And so that moving to a nearby kiosk where you have a reliable infrastructure, fiber-based infrastructure, and do your transaction smoothly. And also you have a trusted neighborhood person who you know who can help you conduct the transaction, and if you fail or if something unexpected happens, help you in it. That gives the degree of comfort that every person, especially in rural area, would like to have. So that infrastructure is needed, and it's supporting the march towards the digital. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Similar question to Venkatramu, sir. With 1.5 lakhs post offices and 2 lakh plus postmen, you have done some phenomenal work as long as AEPS is concerned. However, the bill payment journey is yet to be started. Just wanted to understand that what are some of the steps that you're taking as you digitize and enable more and more digital transactions with the infrastructure that you have?
Okay. See, before moving to the digital versus physical debate, one thing that we need to understand is that even the transactions that are done through an agent is also a kind of a near digital transaction. That's one point. Second is we need to understand that unlike the salaried class, you and me, who get salary directly into the bank account, I think that's one of the biggest trigger for anybody to get on to digital. Especially if you look at the rural markets, it's completely cash based. So if they have to initiate a digital payment, first they have to digitize the cash, put cash into their bank account, and then initiate a digital payment. That's one aspect. So which is where assisted becomes very very important. And as Sanjay ji rightly pointed out, it's more of a convenience, and it also more secure. In terms of promoting these kind of digital payment transactions, one is what kind of experience or what kind of facility that the customer gets also is an important factor. while customer has many choices, today if you look at in terms of category, mobile recharges and electricity bill payments, these are widely used categories in the rural markets. And here again, you have got wide choices. So obviously, customer when has choices, he will pick one of these choices. In order to solve this problem, one is incentivization of agents. What we've seen is that when we went ahead with nil incentive for the agents, probably agents also don't market this. When you have this convenience fee element for cash-based bill payments, yes, there is some inclination of agents for using this as a means of payment, while that's not sufficient. Uh, the next aspect, which probably could help us in promote these kind of payments is credit. We strongly believe that bill payments leave a necessary footprint for lenders to lend. And if that data can be utilized, for instance, if a customer uses his money for electricity bill payment and recharges, that gives a certain pattern about his capacity of consumption. If that becomes a surrogate for lending, while banks can use that, maybe if credit can be provided, like BNPL today, how you are getting BNPL, say on e-commerce kind of transactions, if BNPL can be given, that could trigger maybe that 15% will go by few notches above. I think these are some of the factors which we would like to utilize, but there is no definite answer, how we can promote this. I mean,
Thank you, sir. Uh, I don't think we can move forward without understanding Vijayakumar sir's view. What are the regulator views where phygital transactions are concerned, which are the physically assisted digital transactions? And what are some of the cautions, word of cautions you might want to leave us with as we continue our march towards more number of digital transactions as well as phygital transactions, sir?
Uh, it's actually a purely digital transaction, just like what actually we have just discussed. We will only see that in a person who has already got money, like what actually sir was saying just now. So we may not actually see a full digital transaction from a rural market that easily. So you need physical outlets there. We can only be actually happy saying that okay, the agents from the agent the flow to the biller, and then it's actually a digital transaction, and the customers there are getting introduced to a digital channel, and maybe slowly they may find the convenience and actually start adopting digital modes of payments. So the caution, what actually I would say is that if the agents actually follow the processes, and I would think we don't have any sort of concern. The only actually some of these actually BCs and BC frauds and all. So that one fraud actually the rural customers are actually, yes, they will not come back to the digital. That is what actually. So we cannot we cannot let any fraud happen in this space. So the entities actually who provide these agent channels need to ensure that the last mile agents are properly, what is it, the due diligence of those agents are done, and they provide a proper service to the rural population, so that actually they are not discouraged from further digital transactions. So that is the only what to say, the only message I would have. Otherwise, actually, we are happy with the customers availing the service through agents as well as, because actually it simplifies the channel. As far as the billers are concerned, it provides them. It actually gives them a reach which otherwise actually they would not have, it would not have been possible for them. So we are happy with actually what's happening.
Thank you very much for sharing those thoughts. Moving on to Sunil as well as Samir. Um, both of you have organizations which have a large physical presence as well as a very strong digital play or emerging digital play. Do you think both the formats are necessary to provide to the customers as a single organization? And do these actually complement each other or poach from each other? What are your thoughts on that, Sunil?
See, let me start by saying that if you look at phygital versus digital, I think it needs to coexist, right? Because India is a vast demographic country, right? So we are catering to tier one, very sophisticated clients and consumers, right, who have got Androids and smartphones, who are able to use payments and are able to complete the digital journey end to end, right, without any use of or need for any physical branch or connectivity, right? But if you go to tier three, or if you go to towns, where you do not have a branch presence, I think that physical aspect really comes into play. And I think the gentleman really touched upon a very important aspect of trust, right? The ability, I mean, you would see that the internet can go down, there would be electricity downtime, there would be challenges in terms of people not having smartphones. So the physical touch point really becomes an important criteria where a person can go to a kirana shop or to a nearby panwala and try to see how he can connect and get his transaction done digitally. So I think it's a combination of both physical and digital. And see, India, if you look at it, if you look at 2021 numbers, right, we have transacted more than 48 billion transactions on the digital side. And if you look at UPI, right, which has been a great success story. End of day, if you look at the UPI transaction, it is a combination of physical or digital. I mean, you may say that the customer is using a smartphone, but end of day, the shopkeeper or the person has to put a QR code which is embossed on a paper and he's putting it on his counter, right? So if you look at that entire journey, right? It is a combination of physical versus digital, where the guy is putting up the QR code on his counter and the other person is actually scanning the QR and making a payment, right? So I think if you look at the transformation of making it completely digital, it will take time, but I think the coexistence will really help drive the volumes. I think we had a good launch on the B2B session as well on the BBPS front. And if you look at the discoms per se, right? Today, the biggest challenge what a lot of corporates are facing on the electricity bill payment is the ability to see how banks can integrate with different discoms and how the payments can be done. Now, that B2B solution which BBPS is embarking on, I think that's a great paradigm shift. The way how we can look at the way how the entire infrastructure can be taken to a different league and the bill payments can be made. The last thing I'd like to touch upon is the cash on delivery. I think cash really runs like a parallel economy, if I may say that. That's my personal view. But if you look at cash, it's a big problem, whether you talk about a corporate or for the banks, right? And so is for the regulators. So how do you really eliminate cash? Today, if you are able to give cash on delivery, right, and the person comes at your house and he gives you the bill or he's able to give you the goods, and if you are able to make a payment instantly, right, that's a big shift towards digitization. And in doing so, you help to eliminate cash. And I think, and hence I would say that, the digital versus phygital really needs to coexist. Thank you.
Your thoughts?
Saying,
Can I request you to use the mic, please?
is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with Sunil, and let me start by saying it's not one versus other. The phygital channel will get you to digital. I think let's take a step back. That what has happened in the last 5 to 6 years. Why is that we've seen the BC agent or the BC channel kind of growing by 3x to 5x? There have been a couple of reasons behind this. The first is the internet penetration, right? 2G moving to 3G and then to 4G. That's really triggered an adoption. The second is the low entrant of these smartphones in the country. That's really triggered an adoption. And the third point, which is very, very important, is the willingness by these BC agents to come and be digitally literate. And I'll stress upon this point as I move ahead, because something which is really important for someone to become digital is to be willing to be digital, right? Now, what has happened because of this growth, 3x to 5x growth, these BC agents have now gone closer to the consumer. 5 years ago, we used to hear that a consumer has to travel 15, 20, 30 kilometers to get access to very simple services like banking services, or a bill payment or a financial services. Now possibly that's happening either in the village or in very close vicinity where the consumer resides. I think that's triggering a lot of trust between the agent and the consumer. And that's also a path from this consumer today being phygital and tomorrow being digital and being self-sufficient on its own. I think some of the data points which all of us should stress upon, and then it really also calls out the challenges in the rural ecosystem. Today, look, the smartphone penetration in the country, while it is at 65–70%, but if you think of the rural hinterlands, it's only 35%. So which means only 1/3 of your consumers have a smartphone, and therefore they can be self-sufficient. If you look at the kind of internet activities happen in these rural markets and what percentage of this is used for a financial transaction, that's only 16%, right? So which really talks about that this consumer, while the consumer has a smartphone, they're not really confident. They're not confident of being able to input the right fields, of being able to complete the transaction on their own. And the third point is the trust. A lot of them today, they don't feel confident, or they are confident whether tomorrow if they expose their primary account, is that really safe? They're really apprehensive about it. So these are some of the things that really stop a rural consumer from being phygital to digital, and it's an evolution journey. I was hearing one of the panelists in the other room, and he very rightly said that any big change in this country takes 5 to 8 years. If you look at how the BC channel has evolved in the last 5 to 8 years, there's been a journey. A similar journey has to be for the consumers, and the phygital channel is one channel that will really enable our consumers in the rural markets.
Samir, I can't agree with you more. I think all the panelists have been talking about trust. My next question is to Deeksha, because Google Pay has in places become synonymous to UPI, and even where BBPS is concerned, they are one of the largest 3 apps to process digital bill payments. Now, I would like to ask, what are some of the things that you think Google has done right to build the trust in customers and prompt them to do the digital transactions? Anything from your side, Deeksha?
Thanks, Noopur. And I'll begin with a story. My parents worked in the government and in public sector respectively, and retired a few decades ago. And while they use iPads, laptops, they consume content online, they always went and paid their bills physically till COVID happened. Even then, they got some boy to come home and say, okay, you know what, this is the cash, and go and pay my bill physically. It took one of us between the kids to go and stay with them to get them confident that your account will be secure. No one is taking any money out of your SBI account. For them to start getting used to paying bills online. And when they visited me this time after 3 years, I saw them making bill payments online. In fact, even filing their tax returns online. And I was like, this is what to the point it was earlier made, that digital literacy, I'd say, is one. Digital payments literacy is the next one. And a lot of the work that has happened and what we've done in Google is, I guess, a little bit building on this customer sentiment. We all worry to some extent that, will this payment lead to a security issue later on where, funds go out or a refund goes wrong and, my money is stuck. And we've built around this to therefore look at few pillars. The first one is simplicity. Such a simplicity in a user journey helps them build confidence and trust. Second one is education. So a lot of public videos, campaigns, education, alerts to tell our consumers what looks like a good transaction versus what does not. What are good practices to follow when you're doing digital payments versus not. And then the third one, which I'll spend a couple of minutes on, is what do we do in terms of making the transactions themselves secure. And first of all, big shout out to NPCI, because I think the ecosystem brings that together. Whenever there are any issues, when we see emerging frauds, there is a very quick process in getting that information around and to act on it. The second is we have our ML models working on this all the time to see how do we prevent frauds from happening, how do we raise alerts for our consumers. And on the journey itself, if we feel that a transaction is risky, we send an alert out to the consumer ASAP. So those are some of the things which we actively work on. And on top of all of this is how do we work on cybersecurity, which again has a lot of focus from us. So I would say yes, those are some of the. So it's like more a holistic thing which goes on to gain the consumer's trust, and it's an ongoing journey.
Thank you. Thanks, Diksha. Thanks for sharing all those tips. And I would go back to Sanjay sir and ask if uh, the pieces that Diksha talked about around literacy, around security, around education, how important are these for the physical channels as well?
I think it's a basis on which this whole business runs on. Whether you go to a physical channel or you use the digital channel, you must know what is there. So literacy is a must. So when there is a process to be followed, and he must be knowing. Going to a physical channel helps him because there is somebody to assist him with the process that need to be going through. So that, but some literacy is needed for him. It's much less in terms of digital. Trust, yes. In a physical channel, the trust is more. When we do a digital transactions, we are on in the space doing the things, and we don't know if my transaction fails, my money gets deducted, or some cyber hacking happens. Where do I go? Who do I approach? But when you go to a physical channel, you have one person you can share your worries. And you believe that he is better equipped to handle such mishappenings than you yourself are. And if the physical channel happens to your neighborhood person who you meet at social functions near in the evening, then the trust factor goes higher. So that way, the physical channel, especially in rural area, where it's informal and social interaction that drives rather than the formal, this helps in graduating. And as she has said, her parents, when they was taught by somebody who they trusted, they quickly graduated. So similarly, a neighborhood person, when he teaches him, चाचा आपको अगली बार आने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप घर बैठे ये कर सकते हो, then he takes on rather than a video channel or somebody else. So those factors lead to the journey, and having a physical setup and infrastructure near the place helps in that. And third, which is not that important, but it's still that is that when you have a physical infrastructure, the robustness of internet is better because if you have a fiber system, it's better. If you move the metro out of a metro, mobile network stability is an issue. I don't know how many studies have been made, but we all find in our experience that speed is okay, but stability is one issue. And while doing a financial transaction, if it goes off, the transaction has to be scrapped. And a fiber network and a person who knows the things how to navigate with that, that helps. So I think that having a physical setup in the neighborhood with all the facilities and a trustworthy person at other side of the counter helps in the journey towards the digital.
So, talking about trustworthy person, I think we've all grown up in an era where we trusted the postman with everything, including money. How important do you think is a familiar face and the vernacular language that the person speaks in is in doing a monetary transaction for the rural India that we are talking about? Venkatramu sir, would you want to say
Sure.
something on that?
Sure. I mean, trust definitely plays an important role, as you rightly pointed out. I mean, before getting into that aspect, I'd just like to touch upon, in terms of, promoting the digital payments or the awareness or literacy. I think, especially with regard to bill payments, there is a concern versus convenience, I would say. Why I'm saying concern is because there's one elderly gentleman who did tell me that, I don't want to take any chance with my electricity bill payment. What if it gets failed and my electricity connection gets disconnected on the last day? And same case with the telephone connection. I think these are some of the elements which also come into play. These are the factors which are beyond, say, your awareness or the kind of security concerns. Then the other factor is convenience. As I think Diksha rightly pointed out, I think today convenience is playing a lot of lot many ways in customers' mind. That is also helping us to promote. So coming back to the trust factor that you mentioned about, yes, Postman definitely brings in that element of trust, and more importantly, as Sanjay rightly pointed out, that that helps you to fall back on in case of any challenges or any issues. And even we also keep getting some such concerns, escalations from customers through the Postman, when something goes wrong, and that gets resolved as well. So that anyway kind of build some sort of trust, and that's what helps you in promoting any kind of ecosystem, and that plays a role.
Sure. Thank you. Sunil, back to you. Over the last 20 years, I've seen a period where the banks were pushing the customers onto digital platforms away from the branches. And of late, we again want customers coming into the branches because the branches were certainly empty at one point of time. How do you balance the digital channels that you're providing versus the branches that need to be utilized, that need to engage the customers and keep the human touch alive? How do you balance between these two?
So let me start by saying, customer is paramount, right? And as bankers, we need to be there where the customers are. And if you look at for customer, it doesn't matter whether you are giving him a physical experience or a digital experience. He is expecting a finality of his payment or a settlement that he's doing, right? And hence, it's becoming very important that when a customer comes in either to a branch or he's trying to do things digitally, we are giving him the convenience, right? Giving him a good digital experience, and most importantly, the adaptability, so that the reputation exists because he gains the confidence and he's able to do that. I think the challenge what we see in the economy is about the way how the branches have evolved. So if you look at today at Axis, our endeavor is, if you look at from a biller's lens standpoint, right? What is the billers looking at? The biller is looking at delinquency management. The biller is looking at how am I able to get the finality of my settlement? How am I able to reconcile? From a customer standpoint, he is looking at assurance, right? Which most of our panelists have also touched upon. They are looking at confirmation that whatever payment I have made have actually got and settled. So I think to answer your question, Noopur, if you look at phygital as well as digital, right? I think that needs to coexist. And as a bank, we are trying to make sure that we are able to connect the last mile, whether it requires a digital experience or a physical experience, catering to different masses. So there's no straight answer to say that, we will give a digital experience to our client. It purely depends on what the customer is looking at, right? If the customer wants a digital experience, we are there to happy to give them that digital experience. If he wants a combination of digital as well as physical experience, I think that is also something which we as a bank are progressing. I think there is a paradigm shift, right? The way how we are looking at it. And if you look at, some of the things that we have tried to innovate, just to highlight, we spoke about linguistic barriers, right? I think digitization has really taken a huge shift, because today it's not just about English. Now we have given solutions to various state electricity board, right, where we are able to bring up a landing page in a local language where the customer is able to adopt and transact much more easily, right? I think that is one aspect that we are looking at. Also, the entire APIs that we are able to expose, right, in terms of giving him that real-time information about what payments that he's making, the entire billing or the invoicing and the confirmation that he needs, right, which will give him that confidence, right? I think those infrastructure has really taken place, and the branches really complement in a way that if he has any disputes, right, he can always reach out to the branch and get the ratification instantly done. So I think, as I highlighted earlier as well, the combination of physical and digital is required, right? Because India does have a huge rural population, and to give them that confidence, I think that physical presence will be required, and I think we will evolve as a country in the next couple of years. Thanks.
Thank you, Sunil. Sunil, you talked about customer choices. If I were to talk about bill payments, the customers have a choice of self-checkout kiosks at the physical locations, the physical collection points themselves, the bank tellers, and all these businesses have displayed a very different degree of manual intervention for physical touch points. Now, my question to Samir is that what do you think are 2 or 3 technologies that are very crucial for the success of the phygital transactions or the assisted transactions? Any specific technologies that you would like to talk about?
Yeah. So, I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, as Sunil mentioned, I think it's also about breaking the linguistic barriers, right? So, we at Spice, we've come up with 12 languages which really support our app, both the app and the web option. And therefore, the BC agent that work with us, they have a choice to navigate in the language of their choice. I think that's one intervention which really connects a player to the rural hinterlands and to the BC agents. I think the second technology or the second tool that really helps these BC agents is how seamlessly they can connect with our customer service. In case of a blackout or maybe the transaction is not completed, these BC agents should be able to reach out either to our customer service agent, either through a call, IVR, or a chatbot. I think it's all about they being able to relay that trust to the consumer. So I think these are 2 important tools which really help us and will help the system also immensely once picked up in scaling up the business and ecosystem.
Sure, thank you. Just moving on, Sanjay, anything that you would want to add in terms of the technologies that are helping you grow at CS?
Yes, the technology which I have mentioned is that rapid expansion of internet is one which is helping us a lot in the rural area, and the speed. So that taken care of. Then what we come is the customers and the kiosk operators experience with the processes that we follow. The UI and UX is the one. We find that if it's easily decipherable or easily understandable by a person of average understanding, that system picks up a lot. In our case, as you know, we are a kind of hyper local. We have a 5.5 lakh kiosk operated by the person in the same village and same locality, and we offer more than 600-700 services, not only financial, the government services and all. So our experience with which service picks up at our center and which does not, when it goes up, when it goes down, it very clearly shows that if we can reach out to my kiosk operator easily, it picks up. Despite there being some hiccups on technology so part. But that means that designing the interface is the technology or the mind that must be applied to. And of course, in that, the language comes the primary because it has to be understood by him. So that we find the design part of it, how he navigates, how he understands, and how smoothly it does. Yes. Third part that we need not only technology, but something that when a transaction is done, especially a financial transaction, and it fails in the process, there we need a quick, in fact, RBI or some system, all system operators to see how do we resolve it quickly to the persons. Because he becomes very jittery the moment his money gets stuck. And if it's a large money, we even get call at 2 in the night saying कि मेरा तो 50,000 रुपया फंस गया है, साहब मैं क्या करूं? With the physical channel, there is a more problem. Because here there is an intermediary who has been paid by the customer and he does the transaction on his behalf. So if transaction fails, the customer comes to him and says, मेरे तो पैसे दे दो, काम तो हुआ नहीं. But his money is stuck. So some mechanism for these system where refund can be intermediated or processed quickly, so he has the more confidence. Technology would be needed, the regulation would be needed, and maybe even some decision would be needed.
Sure.
That would help a lot for the system to move much faster.
Thank you very much. Completely agree with you. And possibly my final question back to Vijayakumar, sir. Sir, you sitting at the helm of everything digital payment have a vantage across countries as to the best practices from South Africa's, Brazil and other countries. What are some of the learnings that we can take away today with your knowledge base and enable the digitization journey much, much faster? Any thoughts on that, sir?
Frankly, I not studied actually the other countries. I find that the Indian space is actually very much advanced compared to other countries.
I
So
was expecting that answer, sir.
so some of the things which I would actually I would like to answer to. This failure rates and actually how do you reconcile? I think we already have a turnaround time mandates and all. I don't know if that is actually not working properly. That's something which we will have to examine. So one part I find is actually going ahead where the issues which we have been said, the internet being down and all. So now that actually UPI 123 Pay has been launched, now that's again like a solution which is actually which does not run on what to say internet. So I feel actually the players should now look at that particular channel also to see how that can be leveraged more for bill payment and I find that actually more instant than the what to say the internet based payments. So that is my I do right now we have around I think 20,000 plus billers on this. So you have more use cases of billers actually there out in the market, which need to come on to this. And the bill payment, I think I hardly what to say the amount of bill payment is not actually means the what is it the bill payment space and the channel the payments through the BBPS or system based is actually very low comparatively. So we need actually to do more work and with the help of the ecosystem participants to actually to what to say to increase this and bring in more players and more customers onto this channel. For that, the segments actually the rural segments and all they play a very important role, and these physical outlets would actually be a very important touch point from where actually customers can be onboarded. So we would actually talk with all these entities and actually we will further try to understand what more can be done and actually we are working on that particular part to again increase more in the efficiency and what to say what more can be done, examining what more can be done in the bill payment space.
Thank you very much, sir. And I completely agree with you. Our next phase of growth will come from the physically assisted channels. And with that, we have a few minutes in case we have a couple of questions from the audience. We would be happy to take before we wrap up the panel. So just 2 or 3 questions in case we have any. Yes, we have a question right at the center.
Hello. Hello. So my question is mainly on the India Post Payments
Sorry,
Bank.
can't hear him. Audio is not
I
working,
think it's
please.
because of the mic. Because of the. Yeah.
No.
Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Okay. So my question is mainly around the India Post Payments Bank. So we've seen a lot of growth on India Post Payments Bank, especially with government schemes such as the Bima Yojana and the Jan Dhan accounts and all of these things. But there is a different sector which is still waiting for a lot of unlocking in terms of payments, which is the healthcare sector. And beyond payments, the insurance part as well. So right now, with the way Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission and Ayushman Bharat PMJ are moving forward, are there plans or is there any idea on how India Post Payments Bank could potentially become that a service delivery point, or that point where it's very accessible, the insurance becomes accessible, the digital mission, the components of health become accessible. So if there is any idea on this, I think I would love to learn about it. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. So I'll just take 1 minute to answer this question. One is that we at India Post Payment Bank, we look at ourselves as a distribution company. Though we are a payment bank, maybe 40 to 50% of what we do is actually forms part of core banking. That's number one. And number two, we see ourselves as a universal service platform. So which means any service provider in the country can utilize our distribution network in terms of reaching to the last mile. Okay, so these are the two aspects with which we go and render services to the customer. And coming to the services, these services which are in demand will definitely form the first priority. Second, talking about insurance services and medical services, yes, we are in the process of penetrating insurance, especially with the right kind of products. As we speak, in the last couple of months, we've launched a very sachet kind of a service on general insurance, which is largely, which has really taken off, and where insurance you will normally see as something which is sold, but here an insurance service is getting bought. So that's the kind of demand we are able to see. See, as long as your product, whatever that you launch, has demand, we are ready to fulfill and do the last mile leg work.
Thank you, sir.
With that, I would, yes, sir.
Though uninvited, I would just try to answer it because that's more related to my CSC network.
Yes.
The Ayushman Bharat and digital health mission. In CSC, we are doing at a very large scale. We have registered, I think, largest number of persons under this PMJAY Ayushman card. And our people in the field are helping people in getting the claims under Ayushman Bharat insurance scheme. And we have seen that Ayushman Bharat has led to the spread of digital health insurance in the area which were earlier not reachable. So that we see the future, that led by the Ayushman Bharat, health insurance will pick up in rural and semi-urban area much faster than it has been in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. With that, the time for our panel is over. I would like to take the opportunity once again to thank all my panel members for an interesting discussion today. Really appreciate. Audience, can we have a round of applause for all my panel members, please? Thank you very much.
All right, may I request all the panel members to please pose for a group photo?